Professor Uriel Reichman, member of the Knesset Livni, our guest of honor, distinguished guests. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Dr. Ayelet Ben Ezer. I'm the Deputy President here at the IDC Herzliya. I'm very happy for the opportunity I was given to present to the guests of this 17th conference, 17th Herzliya conference, member of the Knesset, Tzipi Livni. The Herzliya conference is one of the flagship events of the Lauder School of Government for 17 years now, towards which many papers are written, discussions and recommendations. This is all in order to supply to the government of the State of Israel estimations and recommendations how to face the challenges. Even days of routine, and we have a bit of those as well, days of routine between the conferences. We have here at the IDC ongoing research activity regarding strategy and policy. I'd just like to talk about several of our leading institutions. And of course, I'll start with the Institution of Policy and Strategy, which is the home of the Herzliya Conference, dealing with a whole array of topics, cultivates cooperations, labor relations with all leading bodies Israel in the world. We have the Institution of Counterterrorism, the Rubin Institution of the Middle East Studies, International Studies, the Public Diplomacy Program that you've just heard about, and the list goes on and on. Our students here at the IDC partake in the activities of these institutions through their study years, and our graduates are in the forefront of the entire government and strategic work. So, for example, in the Israeli mission to the United Nations, we had no less than 9 graduates of our various government programs. They are in the foreign ministries and consuls everywhere. We're so very proud of them. And most of them continue to advance degrees in the best places of the world. As a woman who believes in women's leadership, in the great importance of government, in incorporating women in particular, I'm so very proud that at the Lauder School of Government, we have over 750 women students and 300 professors, women professors. Over 60 are working in the various government. It is a privilege to be a partner in training the future women leaders, and I'm very happy to host you here. Member of Knesset Livni, you are a role model to us. And a few words about you now. Member of the Knesset, Tzipi Livni, the chairman of the Hatnu'ah political party, co-chair of the Zionist movement, has been acting as acting prime minister, as minister of justice, as minister of housing, and also as minister of immigration absorption. She's a member of Security Council, and she was a member of the legal committee. She's also serving as the legal forefront of the international arena. She headed negotiations with Palestinians in the last 2 rounds of talks. She was a member in the Security Cabinet. Livni was born in Tel Aviv, and she is the daughter of Eitan Livni, the operation officer of Etzel, and a member of the Knesset on behalf of the Likud, and Sarah Livni, an Etzel fighter. She served as an officer in the Israeli IDF and later on in the Mossad. She was a lawyer. She was Director General of the Authority of Government Companies, and in the year 2004, Livni was given a prize for her special contribution for strengthening the rule of the law and protecting democracy. Here at the IDC, member of the Knesset Livni is a true friend. She shares this conference since its inception until today. Tzipi, on behalf of myself, the management, and directors of IDC, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your willingness to give us of your time and to share your extensive experience with you within the 17th Herzliya Conference. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just I will preempt by saying that there were a couple of other portfolios that were actually mine, but that's the problem with our system of governance, but that's a different topic I'd like to talk about. And I've been dealing with Professor Reichman and with the IDC for many years on these issues. The State of Israel is a wondrous creation. When I'm here at the IDC, I think this is one of the best examples of wonderful people, wonderful youngsters who grow up here and learn here and contribute to society and are active in all the domains. Really, a society that we can be proud of. And despite this tough neighborhood that we live in, it has turned into a true startup nation that contributes to the entire world. But thanks to the fact that it is democratic, and after 69 years, and after many a war and campaign and attempt to reach peace that has not succeeded, we now have a historic opportunity. The Sunni moderate world has identified the real threat, and that is Iran and ISIS. And in this war, Israel is not their enemy. On the contrary, Israel can be a partner in that struggle with them. And we could find ourselves in a situation wherein, instead of worrying about what kind of ammunition is being transferred to the Saudis in case that'll be then targeted towards us, they could be a strategic ally for us, and we could find security, strategic depth there at a time where we can't reach them, contact them, or let's not even talk about security collaboration. But all that cannot happen without peace with the Palestinians. What Bibi Netanyahu calls the problem of peace. Well, it's not a problem. It is the vested interest of the State of Israel. We're not doing any favors to the Arabs, but it is incumbent upon leaders to create that negotiation for the people of Israel. The good news is that most of Israel wants a majority, and they know that two-state solution will actually serve the Israeli interest. Up to now, the Palestinians didn't make the decisions they should have, and they removed all their prerequisite threshold sort of decisions because they realize that President Trump is such a person that no one wants to say no to. And he defined the ultimate deal between the Palestinians and Israelis as his sort of true primary interest. And hopefully we will reach that in the region. To go to this moderate Arab world and to take a deposit of steps that they're willing to take for the sake of Israel towards Israel. If Israel shows how they really believe things in earnest through steps that pave towards peace, and I will just hint now about that. And we're talking about whatever Naftali Bennett agrees on will not be serious enough, and that is just a hint for the sake of peace. We do not need to reinvent the wheel, but he says that he'd like to correct Obama's mistakes. But he needs to do what Obama did not do, and that is put principles on the table now. Netanyahu agreed in 2014 to deliberate those principles with various caveats. But since then, he's also changed his position. And if Abu Mazen tries to evade coming to a decision, not to let him. Trump doesn't need to coerce content on both sides. He needs to coerce them one thing: to accept and make a decision now. And even now, he can put an invitation on the table for negotiations based on a number of very basic principles that anyone who intends and understands what needs to be done in order to reach peace needs to say yes to and go and start. Not from the very embryonic stages, but already with various sort of stages that have already been elapsed that people keep seeming to go back to. Netanyahu has no political problem to actually say yes. If he says that he wants it but he cannot because he has a political problem, that means that he doesn't want to, because there is an alternative coalition in the State of Israel that would enable him to make any necessary step for the sake of peace. Israel needs those steps in order to make that decision urgently. And we need it urgently, because this wonderful land that since its inception always safeguarded one vision, one direction, and the objective that we put into our national ways was a Jewish and democratic state. And we always maintained and safeguarded that there would be an equality for all its citizens, and it did work together. That was our compass that led us, all the decision makers in Israel. But now we have changed that route, and someone instead of writing Jewish and democratic into the destination, they wrote the Greater Israel. Now, after all, we do have a right for the Greater Israel, I also believe that, but to hold the entire land, it means to cede the democratic and Jewish state. It would lead us to a state that there would be no Jewish majority, or to an apartheid state. And these two things, I am not willing for them to happen, because they are basically contradictory to each other and to the values of this state as a Jewish state, because equality is first of all, and paramountly so, a Jewish value, and our country cannot cede either of these. But to my chagrin, in Israel nowadays there is a government that we can call what we call peace and equality beyond the actual protocol, while taking advantage of the enemies from the outside, and rather marking and demarcating the enemies from within, because those who are the enemies of Israel, who are promoting, those that he calls enemies, are promoting peace. They want to implement the Declaration of Independence. And those who have already prepared the public opinion to hate together, those who are striving and aspiring for peace, saying that they are collaborating with the enemy, they are actually taking away from us what has turned Israel into the wondrous country that it is. This wondrous Jewry is becoming more and more religious and radical, and sanctifying land instead of the people living on that land. The democracy has become a burden. Those gatekeepers who raise a red flag when someone makes a decision that is not a constitutional decision, they are disruptive on that path, and therefore they have to sort of disqualify the Attorney General, saying, he's just a lawyer. And the Supreme Court of Justice is disturbing the actual enemy, make their decision, so maybe we should go to the barricades against them as well. So instead of retaining that democracy, and it should continue doing so, and they should uphold that, even if they believe that the government is doing something different. It should not be like that. And when the IDF comes and says what the real truth about what should be done in order to decrease the tension, and that is something that would lead to a decrease in the terror, they don't want their voices to be heard. They want them to be gagged. So these are not easy things, but the time has come to raise the curtain over this, in this real theater, to see what really is happening behind the scenes in this government, and that is the true alliance between the Beit Yehudi and the Prime Minister. They believe that this Greater Israel justifies all, be all and end all. Well, all they need to destroy the Attorney General and the courts and the media, so that they will not scrutinize and publish the corruption that is really happening. And that is their common denominator. Unfortunately, that is what adheres all these people together. So therefore, ideologists are taking advantage of Netanyahu's weakness. It's not a political weakness, as I said before. There is a coalition for the sake of a Jewish democratic Israel. But for that, Netanyahu needs to first and foremost stand on his hind legs with his party and talk about the real values of Jabotinsky and Begin, as I did there, as Arik Sharon did, and as Benny Begin does now, who proposed a bill about the Jewish state, but a state that has egalitarian values, and the government isn't even willing to vote on that bill. But the Prime Minister is competing with the Beit Yehudi. So this is a historic opportunity for the citizens of the State of Israel. They're trying to close that window of opportunities, and instead of that, there would be the NGO world and the settlement, the arrangement law, and all sorts of other laws that really create delusions. They are talking with self-confidence, usually with a very masculine voice. You spoke about women leaders. They speak with self-confidence about security, but they have a detrimental effect on the security. Something must be said. Settlements, isolated ones, do not give security. That entire security concept of Israel is that the soldiers are protecting civilians and not the other way around. And if you're talking about a hill there in the distance or an outpost there, again, you've got to send soldiers to guard them. And when Israel is threatened from the north, Israel cannot allow itself that such a high percentage of our military force, that for security reasons, I cannot tell you what the numbers are, will be held in Judea and Samaria because of those needs. Security is to enable the Palestinians to build around their towns in Territory C, like the IDF recommends as well, in order to release that pressure cooker and to decrease terror. So we need familiar, acceptable borders that we have been protecting, and that in 2070, now 70 years after our inception, we still do not have borders. So while those blocks will be part of Israel in any agreement, those settlement blocks, and that's the way I also spoke about in the negotiations, but the isolated settlements are a burden. They are detrimental to our security. They complicate our capability of reaching peace, and any new construction will prevent us that possibility of reaching an agreement any time. So the whole stories of our old historic stories that they keep mentioning are going to actually detrimentally affect us delineating clear borders, and they keep camouflaging that as kind of national pride or security. Well, I'd like to talk to you about national pride, what I'm proud of and what I'm not. I'm proud of Israeli culture. I was very, very moved this morning when I heard about the prize that David Grossman received. But I am ashamed of the fact that theater plays are censored in Israel. I'm proud of our democracy, but I cannot bear the enmity laws that are. I'm proud that we're part of the free world, but I'm ashamed that just this week, our greatest friend Germany, who's always alongside us during any kind of hostility from Europe, have said that we have started reminding them of China and Russia, and that's not happening because of those NGOs breaking the silence and B'Tselem, and that is because Israel is trying to propose another bill wherein the NGOs will not be able and will not be allowed to get any donations from abroad, because that is part of the extremism that exists in Israel. We do not want to be an isolated nation, and this tiny nation surrounded by enemies can be solved, and it is incumbent upon us to solve, and that is what true leadership needs to do. And I'm proud of our Jewish history and our ties with the whole greater Israel, but I am ashamed of people who take those values that I'm proud of and turn them into something totally different in order to annex lands. And that same pride, national pride, is also what makes me angry. Do you know, it was said that when I are doing things, when that God said to the angels, and I'm doing things, when he went into the sea and they are drowning. Well, it wasn't just the things that I did, but the pioneers who built this country, what they did is now drowning in the sea. But they were given to us as a deposit that should be treasured and cherished, and we have no right to destroy what we were given and awarded. And I have something to say for those who remain remain silent and for those who shout out loudly, because silence is not an option for responsible leaders, because that is collaborating, cooperating with political movements that have a detrimental effect of us. And they once said that the hottest place in hell is maintained for those who remain neutral when all hell breaks loose. So if we're talking about neutrality, it may be very tepid and pleasant for people, your comfort zone. It's not very nice to have to safeguard the Arab minorities and the leftists. But if we do not unify and unite ourselves and say what we have to say, and if you have an ideological and political alternative that you can propose to everything else that is being proposed by the existing coalition, we won't be able to stop ourselves sliding down that slippery slope. We need to converge together and unite that public that believes in our path and change that route on ways back to a Jewish democratic state. And I believe in asking for a referendum, not once sort of in an arbitrary time in the future after it's been approved and ratified by the Knesset. No, let's do it right now. It'll save us the fact that we are being forcefully pushed and propelled in another direction, and we will reach the right destination, because as long as there is no final decision, we are in a twilight zone that the government is dragging us back to a point of no return. That bloc should be comprised, first and foremost, of the public that believes in our path. The Labour Party is just now on the brink of its primaries, and it's very important that whoever is elected there should support a strong political bloc, because the Labour Party is not sufficient. And someone who believes in that, that is the right path. That's what I did in 2015, and that manufactured hope. But the partnership in 2015 is what happened in the previous elections. Now we need to expand our ranks and find that new hope once again. And we have natural partners for that path, politicians and other peoples. Minister Kahlon just said yesterday what most of the public understands, that 2 states for 2 peoples is the right solution. He's the only pragmatic voice heard, but he's not the only moderate leader in Israel. So I sincerely hope that when we do unite, it will be a unification of all moderate, responsible leaders in the state of Israel, and we'll have open primaries for the authority and create new hope. We should never remain silent when there are clouds in the sky. And I've started seeing the signs of the various protests against corruption, that the students were not willing to accept the censorship over theatre and this ethical code. So if they are willing to raise their heads, if we do not help them, it will not help. We need to help, we need to unite, and we need to implement.